Welcome to another edition of the Power Connector podcast. I'm your host, Derek Dickow, and joining me today in this special venue is Andrew Stein, President and CEO of the Children's Foundation. Typically, these conversations are with business leaders that I respect and admire that have achieved a certain level of success. But today we have a special guest in Andrew to talk to us today about philanthropy, to talk to us about community engagement, and we're in an exciting venue here today, this atrium. Andrew, welcome to the Power Connector
Thanks for having me,
podcast. By the way,
Derek.
this is a long overdue conversation, so I appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Tell us a little bit about where we're at today and what is new and exciting with the Children's Foundation.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, Derek. We're on the Michigan Central campus. So we're in Corktown in Detroit, right across the way from the iconic Michigan Central train station, which I think everyone knows. We're in a building called the Book Depository. So this was originally a post office building and then became the depository for Detroit Public Schools, where they would keep all their old textbooks. This roof above us, when Ford purchased this building about 6 or 7 years ago, there was no roof on this place. So you can imagine what the inside of this building looked like. Incredible renovation of this building, of the train station across the walkway, and then this entire campus. Where we're sitting is operated by an entity called New Lab that started out of Brooklyn. And around us, all these folks working represent right now over 90 startups that are here working on businesses that are all about the future of not just the auto industry, but mobility overall. So, this is a place that represents the future not only of Detroit, but of our country and of our world, and a way to attract talent to Detroit to do big things that impact our world in the auto industry, but well beyond that.
Yeah, it's an exciting vibe and energy of this atrium. So I appreciate you suggesting that we should film here. There is a very exciting reopening and rebirth of the building next door, historical, transformational project to Corktown, to our city, to our state, and really the country with what Ford is doing and looking to accomplish here. Talk a little bit about that, and then help us understand the connection between the Children's Foundation and what Ford's doing next door.
Yeah, so 6 years ago, Ford purchased the train station, and Bill Ford stood in front of the world and said, "We're going to invest in the city of Detroit and in this iconic piece of property, and we're going to develop, a place where people from around the world are going to want to come because they want to launch their businesses here." And really compete with the Silicon Valleys of the world. And the redevelopment of that building and this area has been incredible. At the Children's Foundation, we were privileged enough about 6 months ago, we got approached by Bill and Lisa Ford to say, look, this building is opening. This is an incredible moment for our city, and we want to do something that impacts the community. But we don't want it to just be a one-off, right? This building is unique. It is impactful. It is innovative. It is going to be here forever. And we want to do something that kind of captures that moment philanthropically. So what you often see around these types of moments is, there's some money given out to the community. Like, that wasn't good enough for Ford. So they really tasked us with, hey, come up with something that is really different. So we developed this initiative. It's called the Michigan Central Children's Endowment Initiative, where initially we set a goal to raise $10 million. We're going to exceed that. We're going to announce the number after the station opens on June 6th, but we're going to exceed that number. And what we're going to do with that money is select 10 organizations in this area that serve kids every single day. And instead of getting a one-time, hey, here's a check for some money, each of these 10 organizations is going to get a $1.5 million endowment established for them. And an endowment is different. It's not a one-time gift. It's a perpetual fund that will be invested and set up for these organizations. And the earnings from that endowment will go to the organizations every single year in perpetuity. So at 1.5 million, these organizations will get $70,000 a year in unrestricted money that they can use for their operations for as long as they are in existence. And really the goal of this is, this book depository, that train station are going to be here forever. let's do something that ensures that the organizations that serve tens of thousands of kids in our city every day, that they can be here forever too.
So they found a way to make some substantive changes and really tie in business, philanthropy, community impact. Last I checked, there's likely 70,000 nonprofits in the state of Michigan. The Ford family is connected to many of them. Why did they find the Children's Foundation so attractive? And what is it about what you do in the community and what your commitment is that drew them to create this program, this endowment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a few things. One, it's in our name, like children's, right? They wanted this to focus on organizations that are serving kids. And that's what we do every single day, right? We wake up and we think about how can we improve the lives of kids in Southeast Michigan and across the state. So it was really within our area of expertise. One of the things in a very early conversation with Lisa Ford was they really wanted this to feel different from the nonprofit perspective. Well, my team, we've spent our career working for and leading youth serving organizations. So all we had to do was think about, how would this have to have felt different from our perspective, and really leaned into that and developed something that has not really been done in this community before. Detroit is one of the most philanthropic communities you're going to find anywhere in the world, but philanthropy here for the last 100 years has very much been about, everyone participates, but all the money goes out in a given year. And that's great. Organizations need annual support, but that's very different than places like Cleveland or St. Louis that, focused on building permanent capital and building endowment. We just haven't really done that much as a city for the past 100 years, but we've got another 100 years to look forward to,
Yes.
and narratives change and innovation arises, and we've got an opportunity to do something a little different moving forward.
Yeah, it's exciting to see this meaningful change in the programs and the charities that you guys will impact. I love that the Children's Foundation has such a wide tent, different pillars and different missions within supporting children's health. Can you talk to us a little bit about the Children's Foundation overall mission, the core pillars of what you're focused on, and the changes that you're looking to make in our community?
Yeah, I mean, just my little bit about my background. I spent the last 14 years leading an organization that worked in K-12 schools in 29 cities across the country. Education is one way to have kids grow up to be healthy adults. But there's a number of things that go into what make kids healthy and thriving and gives them the opportunity to fulfill their dreams. So, working in education for 14 years, looking for what I wanted to do next, I was really interested in the Children's Foundation because, to your point, it's a platform, and we can do a number of things that impact kids on a population level scale in Southeast Michigan, across the state of Michigan. So, the way we do that is we've got funds that we get to invest out in the community. And we typically do that around, kids' physical health, kids' mental health. We do some work in substance use disorder. That's a big issue that is continuing to be a need that there's not a lot of philanthropy around. And then we invest in things that provide access to care for kids and families. So things like school nurses or community-based health centers. But then there's this whole other side of the Children's Foundation where we work with families and individuals and companies to help them with their philanthropy. So it's a really cool platform where we've got dollars to invest, but we have the opportunity to go out and work with others to say, how can we help you realize your philanthropic goals? And folks like you, Derek, through Power Connections and the fund that you've created. But there's 400 or so other families that set up their philanthropic funds in unique ways. And we get to work with them and say, what do you want your impact to be? And that creates the opportunity to do really, really innovative, impactful things out in the community.
You mentioned 14 years experience in the nonprofit space. What was it that drew you into this space originally? I mean, when people grow up, the parents want to say become a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. Not a lot of parents are sort of advancing this notion that, hey, be involved in a nonprofit or maybe think about running a charity someday. What drew you?
Yeah, as much as I'd love to give credit to my parents and they'd love the credit, they had nothing to do with it because I grew up in Franklin, Michigan. Like I don't know that we ever met, but I knew who you were growing up, right? I went to Country Day since third grade. Nobody at Country Day is telling you go lead a nonprofit.
Sure.
I always was told I should go be a lawyer probably because I was a decent writer and I had an opinion on things.
Mhm.
I ended up going to college at Michigan State, took my LSAT, was all set to go to law school, and just wasn't feeling it at 22, 23. There was just something in the pit of my stomach that said, this doesn't feel right. And then I just had a moment where I learned about this organization called City Year. And I put my law school applications aside and I moved to Washington, D.C. And I spent a year working in DC public schools in Southeast DC, which are some of the highest poverty communities you're going to find in the country. And it really just kind of a light bulb went off in my head. And I was so passionate about it. And I was working 50, 60 hours a week, just like my friends who had moved to New York or Chicago and were working in investment banking. But I was coming home and I was motivated. I couldn't wait to go to work the next day. And it just really kind of was a signal for me that maybe I need to be doing something where there's a social aspect to it and a social mission. I think being in DC at that time was particularly informative because service is such a part of the ethos in that city. And so I met a number of mentors and role models who were coming in and out of government or coming in and out of, the nonprofit sector. The thing they all had in common is they were all lawyers, whether they were practicing or not. So I ended up going to law school at Georgetown and spent 11 years in Washington, D.C., put in my time at, one of the big law firms. But 9 years ago, said I need to get back to doing something that has a social impact. And I would love, love, love to do that back in my hometown of Detroit. And so had the opportunity now almost 9 years ago to the day to move back to Detroit. My wife agreed, brought 2 of our kids. Now we've got 3 kids, bought a house in the city and have been here for the last 9 years and absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's a great story and one that opportunities come along the way, but it seems like a big part of what you do and your mission is in supporting people and helping to add value to those around you. And I see that in the way you carry yourself and the way you present yourself, your willingness to just make introductions and be supportive. I think a big part of networking and what makes people successful at what they do is thinking about philanthropy, thinking about being in service to others, which you do well. Can you talk a little bit about your experience in helping to create networks of people around you and how you've been able to utilize philanthropy, charitable work to help others along their business journey?
Yeah. Yeah, we're in the same business, right? As is so many people. I think it's just relationships. And so what's interesting, I think, about my line of work, because I'm like you, I'm like Milan Gandhi. I watched his podcast. He's a friend, but he's a mentor and someone I learn from. Milan, and I think I'm the same way. You put yourself in rooms and you never know what's going to happen.
That's right.
You build relationships, you meet people not with an agenda of where the relationship is going to go, but because you're genuinely curious about people. And then the opportunities to work together reveal themselves. I think what's interesting for me, and I'm always conscious of, is when I meet someone, and inevitably within the first couple questions, it's, what do you do? And I tell them that I lead a nonprofit, I can sometimes see on people's faces, they think I'm going to ask them for money, like right then and there. It's like, that's not how it works, right? So really, like, part of my challenge, and I love it and I embrace it, is like, I've got to get people to open up to me and form that authentic, genuine relationship, and they can't perceive me as sort of always seeking something, right? And I think it's the case in other businesses, but I'm trying to add a different value to my value proposition is different than I've got a business that maybe your business or you might be in need of. I'm selling something very different. I'm selling impact. I'm selling value. I'm selling legacy and something deeper for you and your family. And having people trust that you're a person that they can work with on that really involves building up a great deal of relationship equity, which to me is all about authenticity and trust. And that takes time. And sometimes it takes 6 months, sometimes it takes 6 years. But when you get people to a place where, they realize they want to have an impact in a different kind of way and they trust you to be their guide or a place they do that, it's really, really meaningful, because for them, this is about a different kind of return. And they've got to open up to you about that. They've got to share what their values are beyond just, a business ROI they're looking for. And it means a lot to me when people place their trust to do something that is really about their soul in me and my team.
Yeah, and I like that you connected it and saying it's very similar in our businesses. We may be selling different things or focusing on different things, but everything that we do is based on people. And I tell people all the time when they ask me what I do, I tell them I'm in the people business, just like you are. We just happen to have maybe some different goals that we're trying to focus on. But a lot of what you do and a lot of what you spoke on is about brand presence and being in the right rooms. And if I could take it back to one characteristic that I admire you for, is your listening skills. And I think that those that can develop the ability to listen well, it's almost called exquisite listening, right? Really focusing in on what people are saying, but also picking 2 or 3 or 4 things from that conversation to show that you care, to show that you're paying attention, and then maybe following up after. And people are like, unexpectedly, I like that. I like to be around Andrew, or I like to be around his energy. And then people are willing to support you and support what you're working on. Do you find any of that to be true?
Yeah, it's definitely listening, because you're genuinely curious. I think curiosity is such an important characteristic. And so I ask questions, and I think sometimes I've had friends say this. They're like, how did you strike up a conversation with that person? My kids hate it. They've come to just accept the fact that anywhere I go, I kind of chat folks up, but it comes from a genuine place of curiosity. And I think sometimes people think that asking others questions is off limits, but you're just asking and people tend to respond. And then you're in a conversation, and if your brain is just sort of thinking, I'm genuinely curious in who this person is, what they're up to, what motivates them, and you ask questions along those lines, then you start to glean information from folks. And then you got to figure out a way to remember it, right? Like for me, it kind of sticks in my head, but there's ways and tactics I have where I'll write it down, where I'm sort of thinking, what's the story with this person? Because I think folks have a narrative. Got a story of who they are, where their life has led them, why they're doing what they're doing, whether it pertains to their philanthropy or not. But I'm always kind of thinking, what's the narrative with that person? And how can I help them write the next chapter that makes sense? And the times that I've gotten it right, people are saying, yeah, that feels right. And then I know I'm off if the next chapter would be something totally different than the story that they've been writing up until that point. And I'm sort of always conscious of that. Am I helping them and shaping what the next chapter is that makes sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. I mean, you're trying to help connect it moving forward, which is something that not a lot of people think about, because most people are in the, what can I get out of this introduction, or what can I get out of this handshake?
Or what do I need next?
What do I need now?
And let me make that fit with where they are.
And sometimes you got to be patient.
That's right.
And most of the times, if you are patient, it pays off, and sometimes it doesn't. But you are someone that makes relational deposits in others without any kind of expectation. It's more or less, this is what we're doing, and this is how can I help? And I see that from you often. I'd love to ask, I have heard about gifting, and I have heard about raising money in this way. So it's broken up into 3 different buckets, if you will. So if you have something that somebody says, oh, I would love to support your initiative, it comes from their heart. So that's the first bucket, is that they're willing to give from their heart. The second would be depending on who's asking. So they want to make a relational, leverage some relational capital in order to make that ask. So I see buckets of people that give out of that. And then the other one is maybe they have some future, I want something later from you. Maybe it's access or information.
Yeah.
So I have seen in my career in raising money for politics or in philanthropy that people really give out of those 3 buckets. So from their heart, because of who's asking on the relational capital side, and then maybe they want something in the future. Have you found it to be any different in your space?
Yeah, I'd add a fourth, and I'd say impact. I'd say there's people who are giving at times because they really want to make a difference. They want to understand what that difference is, and maybe that's tied to heart, but it's a different kind of appeal. It's more of an appeal to the head. Like when you're talking to someone who's been successful in business, and you're going to go ask them for, it doesn't even have to be a large amount, but you're asking them to reach into their own pockets and give of their own money. You say we're in different businesses, but we're not. Like I come at that's a business meeting to me, and I need to lay out the case for why what I'm asking for is worthy of their financial investment in the same way, someone else is coming to them asking for their financial investment. So you're absolutely right. I think it's knowing kind of where you're operating, right? And it's meeting people where they're at to the point that we were just discussing. Like, do you need to appeal to the heart? Is this because of who's asking? And how do you ensure that that continues to be a part of the relationship you're building? And sort of knowing where people are at and making sure that you're tailoring your appeal in that way, and not kind of pigeonholing people where it's like, hey, I might have met, you're so good at introducing me to people, right? And I keep in mind, this was someone that I met through Derek, and that's why they are taking the initial meeting with me. And I don't want to lose sight of making sure I mention Derek in that meeting and keeping you updated on what's going on with that relationship. But I want to figure out a way to get them to sort of feel with their heart what we're doing and appeal to their head. And keep in mind, how might I be able to help them longer term? So, it's making sure you don't get people in a position of like, oh, they're always about this or that, because that's not the case.
Yeah. Can I ask on a tactically, like, how do you maintain your CRM internally? So, you see my paper on the table there.
Yeah.
I mean, wherever I go, I'm taking notes. I'm listening, I'm paying attention. I might be in my car after a meeting and I got to write down, okay, he said this and this is what is important to him. How do you said you take notes. Where does it go after that?
Yeah. I never feel like I'm good enough at this. Again, like I watch you to me are someone who has systematized relationship management in a way that I want to better understand. Again, Millen, same thing. I listened to his podcast on this and he talked about his spreadsheets and the fun I think he has in saying, oh, what if I had these three people playing golf together? So I learn from folks like you. People will just pop into my head and I don't ignore that. I sort of take that as a sign of like, well, why did that just come to me? And try to think about it and follow up on it. I've certainly got my lists and I've got a whiteboard in my office that I'll just sort of have a list of names that I'll write up there. I'll tell you something that I've started doing recently that I learned from a friend. And thank you to a colleague of mine, Delora, who without her, I wouldn't be able to do this. And she's sitting over there right now.
Delora.
We're on LinkedIn all the time. We're on Facebook. We're reading Cranes. We're reading this or that. And you read about people doing things in their lives or their careers. And it's like, okay, very simple to click a like button. What a friend of mine does, and I've started doing this, is I will write a handwritten note to that person, even if I don't know them. 3 sentences. Hey, saw that you took this new position. Can't wait to see what the future holds for you, etc. I don't put a business card in that envelope, but at the bottom of that piece of stationery is my contact info. I initially said, Delora, I'm going to do 10 a week. She's like, no, you're not. She's like, let's start with 2 a week.
Yes.
I've had my peaks and valleys, but I'm probably averaging maybe 1 a week over the last 6 months. What's incredible is I think 75% of the time I get a response from the person. They will send me an email just because they see my contact info, and then that leads to a meeting or the start of a relationship that would never happen as a result of a comment on a LinkedIn post or a like of a LinkedIn post.
Are you taking the old-fashioned step of handwriting and people get it, they open the mail? I can go back and think about when I get letters from people, and you sent me one time too, and I'm like, this took time from him, and I appreciate it. And I think that people should consider getting back to that. It's a little bit more authentic. It takes a few minutes, but the end result is to leave a lasting impression with people that you care about or people that you think are doing things that are meaningful in the community. So
Yeah.
I love that component. I will never, as long as I'm breathing, I will always take my time to do that gratitude calls that I have in
Oh,
December.
I love
It's
your
a big-
gratitude calls.
Yeah, it's a big part of my practice. I actually look forward to it. I keep a list all year long. I like to add people to it. I don't like to subtract. So
You're
the
gonna have
list-
to start earlier and earlier before the end of the year as you keep building relationships and having more gratitude to express to folks.
it is it's a practice that started with 12 calls. And for me in 2015, after the passing of John Lucia, was an important community guy to me and a mentor. But it was just a way to memorialize and kind of honor his legacy. But people, it goes a long way with people. I get people to text me back and they're on some beautiful trip in the Bahamas and I'm
Yeah.
at my desk making the calls. So I know it brings joy to a lot of
So
people.
12 people. What are you at now? What do you think?
I think we topped out at over 500 last year,
I love
maybe
it.
600. Yeah, I don't count, and people will ask me. I do keep a spreadsheet, and I do, I do like to log the calls, but I don't count the calls. I count the calls that people when they take it, and it becomes a 15 or 20-minute catch up,
Yeah.
just about life, love, the pursuit of happiness, family, health. Of course, a big thing I love to
Yeah.
talk to people about. And so it's just a big part of my practice.
Yeah.
I just believe in it.
I love the call. I'm also conscious that, and I appreciate the call. I know that you're making your calls. So I sort of in my head am saying, I want to keep Derek on the phone long enough that we have a meaningful conversation, but I can't make this a 20-minute thing because I'm going to throw him totally off of the 499 others he's got to make.
In catching up for breakfast or lunch, I mean, you and I do that often, so that's a good way to do it. I do want to ask some questions here
Yeah.
that I have about specifically about Power Connection. So
Yep.
Our conference for us started in 2021, coming out of COVID, producing these full-day conferences. I made a decision maybe 4 days before the event in November of 2021. I saw the success of it, and it was the first time that people were getting together again after COVID and the shutdowns. And we felt like there was an amazing 5-minute window where we could make a gift to the Children's Foundation, support what your mission is, but also leverage the impact that we can make in that room. And for us, it's been an incredible experience, not knowing what the future could be at the time.
Yeah.
And still to this day, thinking about how do we do more and what else we can do together to help make, the old 1 + 1 + 1 = 4 or 5. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience at Power Connections. And if you could share what that's been like the last couple of years, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, this is a credit to you. Like, I think you see connections, you see angles on how to tie things together between people and thematically or opportunities that it's part of what makes you and successful in the
Thank
way
you.
you are. I go to dozens of charity events every year, and I see how, there's an ask made at the event. And more often than not, it's not done well. And the first time I came to Power Connections, it was only a couple weeks after I started. And it's, Derek Dickow does this thing. It's a networking kind of business, I don't know, networking, but so much more than that. And he doesn't ask for funds to the Children's Foundation. I'm like, but this is not a charitable event. This is a business. People are there for business. How does he do this? And we walked out of that room between you tee it up. I do a little sort of 3 minutes on what the Children's Foundation is, and then you personally commit every time. You're patient up there. You ask in the right way. You shut up when you need to shut up, which is important. And we walked out of there, I think, with $40,000 or $50,000, and that's been pretty consistent. And this is not a charity event, so it's incredible, and that is more successful than I've seen at many events that are specifically fundraisers. So I think it's an incredible platform. I'm grateful that you include us in it. I think there's opportunity moving forward for how we. The folks who have been coming to this for years and have participated philanthropically, how we tell that story on a bigger level for them, tie in additional opportunities for sponsorship and charitable giving, and continue to make this bigger. But you're like me, where you're always thinking, what's next? How can I do more? How can I do more? sometimes my job too, Derek, is telling people like what you're doing is incredible and I'm anxious for more too. But I want you to appreciate how special and incredible what you do is. And walking out of these Power Connections events with $40,000 or $50,000 is really good. And we'll do more and we'll figure out how to do more. But I want you to know that. I don't want you to really hear that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's a big part of us, what makes us tick and what excites us about the event is that we can walk away with a proudful, hey, we were able to get the community in this room to chip in, 40, 50. I'd like that number to be up to
I know you
100
would.
or so.
So would I.
And I'm eager to see when we can cross that $1 million mark for the Children's Foundation. This year, you're actually going to participate in our event in a little different way. I mean, we'll still do the ask. And so for those of you that are new to Power Connections, enjoy that moment and, we'll find a way to include you. But you're going to actually interview Mary Culler of Ford. And I'd love to get a little maybe insight of what that conversation might look like.
Yeah, so Mary Culler leads Ford Philanthropy, so Ford's community investment arm, which is global. Mary was also and has been the driving force and leader behind the entire redevelopment of Michigan Central, which is this entire campus. It's the train station, it's the Book Depository, it's all of the public space and everything that's going to be happening on this incredible piece of property in Corktown. So I'm excited to talk to Mary about this project and the placemaking, but how you use placemaking to spur innovation and drive business goals. And again, not just for Ford, but for the future of Detroit and our country and our world, and what it means for sort of Detroit and the U.S. to be a place where people are coming to solve the issues of the future. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the event that had happened on June 6th, which is the opening of the train station. The dust will have settled on this amazing endowment campaign we've built, and Mary has been right there alongside of us in leading this. So we'll have lots to talk about that I think will be of interest to the room and beyond.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. And maybe you can ask her a little bit about networking and how she manages her internal CRM, because she is the foremost expert on relationship development and working with people.
She was chief of staff to Bill Ford for years. So she is an incredible relationship builder, and then has seen, how do you work with a C-suite executive like a Bill Ford to manage all the important relationships he's got. So it'll be a great conversation.
Well, we will have our biggest event to date. We're expecting north of 400 attendees. And one of the things I always tell people about is that the caliber of the room is a good quality room for people to be in and to network and build relationships. And I'm real honored to have you a part of it this way in a different, hosting a fireside chat. I think it's a unique way to showcase your talent and to talk to Mary. So we're excited about that very much and really looking forward to it.
Me too. Thank you for including me.
Yeah, a couple final questions that, to me, I think help round out. And for those, we never know who's actually watching these podcasts from start to finish. But I like to think that there is a young, ambitious, driven, maybe 23-year-old law school student whose parents have told them over and over again, in order to make it in America, you got to be a doctor, you got to be a lawyer, you got to be an engineer. And they found their way into law school, but they're driven by this calling that there is more to do.
Yeah.
And there's impact to make beyond dollars and bank accounts. And so as we kind of walk away from this conversation, thinking about what advice you might share with them to help consider a role, even as a committee member of the Leaders for Kids committee, or to maybe perhaps pursue a board seat or a leadership role in a charity that motivates and excites them. What sort of advice do you have for that person?
One, come talk to me, right? I think that young people underestimate how much, I say young, like, who are we, Derek, right?
Are we young?
Yeah.
Can we still be young?
Yeah, I think
all right,
so.
I'll take it. Yeah.
But that 22, 23, 24, I don't think they fully appreciate that people want to help you, right? So put yourself out there, reach out to folks and just say, hey, I'm trying to figure out my career. Tell me your story. I'm thinking about X, Y, or Z. People respond to that, and people often look for ways to help other people, especially when you're early on in your career. So, just put yourself out there. I think if you're interested in philanthropy, civic participation, board service, something like that, just start to do it. Just start to do something, right? Raise your hand to serve on an event committee, join a young professionals board, just get involved with something, because oftentimes I think young people think about, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? You really learn through doing stuff. And then you sort of reflect on a situation and say, okay, was that motivating to me? Did I like that? What was it about it that I liked? And how do I pick my next thing that allows me to do some of the things that I found motivating from that experience? And I think that's true of any jobs you have early in your career, anything you're doing with your education, any volunteer service. You can't think of things in terms of, what do I want to be? A lawyer is an easy label, and it's something that your parents can easily tell their friends you are. But it's really, what are you doing every day that motivates you and makes you feel like your talents and skills are being put to best use? And you really can't figure that out for yourself until you start to do things and then reflect on, wow, what was it about that experience that made me feel really good? And let me try to do more of that moving forward.
So I love that. So your best advice is to ask others for advice, raise your hand, get involved, pick something of interest that motivates and excites you, and show up and be a participant. I think one of the greatest benefits that people that participate in board seats or in nonprofits is they get to surround themselves with like-minded people, and then you never know what that opportunity or that relationship can become. And I think that that's the beauty of what you do with people, and something that is a reward, a benefit for you for participation.
Can I actually add one thing to that?
Please.
Because I think we are more isolated from each other maybe than we ever have physically. We can engage online in some ways, but even so, if your online participation ends up being catered to what an algorithm thinks you want, there are fewer and fewer opportunities for people to come together in pursuit of a common cause. And nonprofit board service is one of the last, and I think most important places. You said like-minded individuals coming together. They're like-minded in pursuit and passion for the cause they're working on. But boards are people from all different walks of life, different career paths, different political ideologies, different geography. But when they all come together because they have a passion for the organization or the cause they're serving, that's a beautiful thing. And that doesn't exist in very many places right now in our society. And I think a board is a wonderful way to do that.
And if people wanted to get involved in the Children's Foundation, what's the best way that they should do that?
Yeah, so go to our website, subscribe to our social media. We're constantly putting out, whether it's attend an event or help plan an event like the Leaders for Kids summer recess we do, or you want to serve on a committee about something we're doing in the community, or you just want to get together and learn more and figure out the right way for us to plug you in. We're constantly having those conversations. So go to our website, yourchildrensfoundation.org. Reach out to me personally, and we'll find a way to get you involved.
Yeah, the foundation is always looking for a good talent. There's always places to put, a lot of work to be done, and want to let you get back to it. But appreciate you spending some time with us today, sharing some exciting things happening with the Children's Foundation, being a part of this transformative rebirth here at Ford Central, and it's just exciting. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Keep up the great work that you do in the community, and just being a great guy and somebody that is really driving what's happening in this region. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And this has been a special segment here on the Power Connector podcast, downtown at the Ford Central, the Book Depository, and featured today with Andrew Stein, President and CEO of the Children's Foundation. We'll see you soon on the Power Connector podcast.